I feel like I'm just going to start.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's go, Ethan.
Yeah, thank you for those that have come. I know that it is finals week and work is crazy and we're all dying, but this is a topic I've been pretty excited to dig into, and it's the topic of teamwork feats based off of the naming in D&D or Pathfinder, where you get teamwork feats for your team. We're going to be talking about working in a pipeline and working in a team and how that kind of builds into each other in the industry and what we as students can do to kind of grow into that. So this is going to be a bit more of a conceptual talk on us as artists and less of our technique and how we're creating concepts. So yeah, excited to get into it. Little introduction. The first topic we're going to go over is macro play versus micro play, which is the League of Legends term for the general versus you as an artist. Then we're going to go into how you can level up and how you can use teamwork feats and how you can work with other people better. Then we're going to get into pipeline, and then we're going to get into selling your work. And finally, we're going to talk about how we can improve and wrapping it all together. So a little bit of a hefty topic, but for those of you that are here, you're going to get the gold mine. So first, we're going to dig into macro play and micro play. So this is kind of the way that I've been structuring it in my head, because on a team in a video game, you've got your macro, how you work and your team play and the strategies that you use to win. And then you've got the individual, how you personally play. So this goes straight into how we as concept artists, fundamentally, we're honing our skills all the time, but we equally need to be able to hone our ability to work with other artists. How we communicate our ideas and how we build our ideas from each other is a whole other skill that is completely, I feel like, underrepresented in a lot of our classes for obvious reasons. It's a hard thing to learn. So just saying outright, this is going to be a bit of a wide talk and not necessarily a honed in technique talk, but reality check. 90% of the time we're at SCAD, here at Illustration and Sequa, we're working by ourselves on personal projects, and personal pitches are usually only over a couple weeks. If we're doing them in a group, that's kind of the standard here at school, but that's not how the industry works. As concept artists, we're responsible for a huge portion of how much is like being a part of the larger whole. In that aspect, we have an entire crew that has our back. And that's also an entire crew that we can't let down. So this idea expands far outside of art. Any job where there's a group effort, these dynamics are going to be playing. There will be leaders, there will be workers, and all the steps in between. What matters for us as artists is that we work well enough with others that each part of production can continue moving along smoothly. It's not really possible to fully mimic this ourselves. Our soft skills get built by throwing ourselves into this experience with others, but hopefully we can still be aware of this key aspect and we can use this to become better concept artists, and this can reflect as this can reflect on us as stronger professionals as we break into the industry. So this is just, we can be aware. We're going to be able to work on it, and I've kind of been digging into this in my personal experience throughout the semester on doing a lot of group project work. So I've got a lot of takeaways and a lot of stuff that I wish I knew about beforehand. So teamwork feats. What is this? Some kind of Dungeons and Dragons? I definitely think that the way that we play like tabletop games or video games is very, very similar to how we work in teams. Team play is not about systems. Team play is about people. So do you want to be that party member who fights well, is a good role player, lifts up their teammates, or the party member that steals from other players and metagames and is kind of just a dick to be around? What would you personally want in a team member? If you want people to get back to you quickly, or if someone is late, how would you feel? You know? Team play is not about systems, it's about people. And I personally think that scanning and noticing what's going on all around you and being proactive, kind of to some extent being a people person, is going to be really important to working better in teams. There was an instance earlier this semester where I came in late for this really important group meeting, and it was really helpful that one of my team members I wasn't even friends with pulled up a chair for me. There was no chairs for me to sit in, and it was that awkward, where do I sit, where do I go? And someone noticed that, took aware, and pulled up a chair for me, and I've kind of always remembered that as a really nice move, and it made me feel like I was included. It can happen to all of us, and we can be aware, and how would we want to be treated if we were on the other side? So, what would you want to see in a team member? What would you like to improve on? How would you feel? Basically, vitally, sorry, I just need a drink of water. But basically, what we need to work on is how we ourselves would like to work in a team, and how would we want to see that in our team members. If we see someone who's submitting something late, how would we feel? And how could we improve that in ourselves? That's kind of what we're going to be talking about a lot throughout this talk. So, building a positive work environment. This is currently really vital to the industry, and I think that as we're all professionals, we're going to be needing to be aware of this. And if we're going to be treating ourselves as professionals, we're going to need to be very cognizant with all of the controversies that have been going on lately in the industry. I think that everyone needs to take part in working on this, despite claims of certain, I guess, culprits, certain responsibilities of everyone on the team. I think we all can be made aware, and we can all hold each other accountable. So the first thing I think that is going to be hard for a lot of us to dismantle, and is really important and a foundation to all of this, is the one against all mentality. It's truly not helpful, and it's not making you a better artist. From the second we're in school, a lot of us get trapped into this mentality that there are those that are better and that there are those that are worse, with us mixed in somewhere in between. In reality, I think that we are all collaborators and not entirely rivals. And as hard as that can be to swallow, because it feels difficult to compare yourself, and it feels difficult to collaborate with someone who is far better than you and who might make you feel worse, it's a part of the industry that we're going to have to live with. And it's a part of our job, because we are all entering such a niche subject that there are people that are going to be way better than us. There are people that are just going to blow us out of the water at every step of the way. And working with them is how we improve and how we get there. So, respect. This is going to be the first topic that we would go into for building a positive work environment. So, not getting along with everyone is going to be the first challenge with respect. Having respect for your teammates is really vital. You may be thinking, of course, I respect all my peers, but in a fast paced, really high stress environment, you'd be surprised. It's really easy to get petty, to get a little egotistical, and to want to put yourself above others for safety, just like how we were just talking about the one against all mentality. But on the flip side, you could see others like so above you that it makes you feel like you're not enough. And there's kind of just of ebb and flow of this in every team setting, and it gets a lot worse when you're in a high stress environment and there's so much influence on you all the time. There are going to be cases where outright you just don't get along with people too. Either it's a different artistic taste or different working styles, or they're always stealing your thunder in group topics and group presentations. It's going to happen. And navigating this as a professional is extremely vital. To some extent, we get to navigate this in our classes, but especially when you're on a team setting, it's going to be really important to get through this, because a lot of industry professionals sometimes will even talk about how, oh, I was on a really rough production, not because of the art or because of how challenging it was, but usually it's because of the crew that they were on. And the smoother productions are usually, oh, I loved my team. My director was so amazing. It's honestly a much bigger aspect of the art once we're professionals. Communication. This is going to be the second part of creating a better work environment, and respect and communication seem like things that we all know, and it's just self-explanatory. But when you're thrown onto the team setting, this becomes a lot more challenging. Communication issues are at every turn, everywhere. And it's okay to fail. Being open and communicating with your team is a million times better than being closed off and leaving them guessing or leaving issues hanging. It's okay to not be able to get something on time. Like not communicating that you can't complete a task by that deadline is what's really not okay. And critique is vital, so vital to every stage of a production. Leaving an issue hanging and not speaking your mind is at a detriment to the artist and to yourself. With issues that come up, communicating when someone does something wrong is really important to growing. Is so important. It might be difficult, it might be hard. That person might even be better than you, and you feel to some extent, why would I have anything to critique? This person is so much greater. But it's all for the service of a bigger product when you're on a team in the industry. Also, a note with this, everyone is entitled to your own thoughts. You always have the right to voice or to not voice your own opinion, but just be aware of the needs of the production and that the production needs to keep moving, and communication that is lacking could result in issues down the line. It happens all the time and way too much. Another note on this is you can work on capitalizing on your team's strengths. Hopefully, you won't always have to work on something you aren't excited about. That's why concept art is frequently split between character, environments, and assets. And you don't have to work on so many different things at once. When you're on a team, the best part about it is that you are allowed to specialize. You are allowed to dig so deep into something, and then someone else is digging into another thing and they're covering their back. As a leader, or honestly not, this applies, I think, for everyone, the responsibility will fall on being proactive and being a good scanner of the room, being really respectful and aware of other people's needs, asking your teammates what you need to be successful, and being proactive and looking out for issues they might run into down the line is what's going to make you be a better communicator than other people. And it's something that takes a lot of work and can be challenging to get into a flow of it. But honestly, when you're friends with people on a production, you might be doing this without even realizing it. I'm definitely explaining it in obviously a robotic way, but it's something that you have to feel out. So a bit on the pipeline, concept artists fall squarely in between the very beginning period of pre-production and all the way trickling into production. We're at the front end of the charge, creating the framework for everyone else. Thank you, Maxwell Bose, for giving me this amazing graph that I kind of stole from his Zoom presentation. There is too much at every stage of this for me to go over. It's important to note that when we're on the job, it's okay to be unsure and need to learn how to do things. We may get hired because we're a good artist, but truly, we're going to be staying around because we're a good person. There's a balance of learning, and there's also a balance of showing off and this is what I'm here to do. It's going to ebb and flow. There's also a huge balance of solving problems and generating excitement, which I think that is a little under talked about, how we can generate excitement in our work as well as solve problems, but I'll get into that later. So the difference between a school portfolio and an industry portfolio, from some people that I've been researching that need to break into the industry and they just can't, there's that plateau, is an industry portfolio. You're not just showcasing your skills, you're also showing your understanding of the pipeline and your ability to get the job done. That's why breaking in past the student barrier is so challenging, because a lot of these theories and little intricacies and philosophy of working in a team is not there yet. And an art director can immediately tell when you know what you need there. Oh, this person needs turnarounds and the ideation, and you don't need to render this idea out as much because it's going to be given to 3D modelers later and they just don't need it. or the efficiency of an artist that has worked in a studio versus a student. In an industry portfolio, you're also not making cool stuff all day. There's a lot of communication and problem solving that's involved. How would this idea, for example, look if it was in 3D? Like this drawing, although this drawing is really cool, honestly, it's still cool stuff to me. It's a lot of like orthographics and stuff from different views and pulling out props, and it's a little bit more boring stuff than concept paintings and really rendered out character designs. But this is truly like 10 times more useful, 10 times more useful. And every one of us is going to get asked to do it at some point. Also, how quickly could you redesign this concept? Like if you were looking at this page and seeing all of these turnarounds and like layouts and all that, how quickly could you completely redesign it if it got scrapped or changed? It's another ebb and flow of production that until you're on it, until you realize that this is how it goes, might hit you by surprise. Also, is an element or an addition to this concept going to be strenuous or require a lot of extra time and effort for 3D artists down the line? It's something that we're always thinking about, and when we're in our illustration and our secret classes here, it's not something that we really know to think about yet. But when you're on a team, when you're sitting right next to a 3D artist and you can be like, this is a great idea, could you do it? And you get told no, or you get told, yeah, that's fine. You start to get a feeling for what could work and what couldn't work. And it'll totally be different for everything that you're making. So another example, because I had to, of something that's really cool, but honestly just working out details and working out what something looks, and honestly a really good aspect of look development that I think goes underutilized from the flashy stuff. So another huge realization when you're thrown on a team is how efficiently are you working? The obvious Anthony Jones reference, because he works so incredibly fast. And there's a reason, because when you're working in the 9th hour all the time, when you're asked this on the same day that we need 3 turnarounds of this environment for 3, because 3 other people need it. So we need you to do it like now. It's going to throw your work and your process completely in a loop. Like how fast is your process? How quickly are you going to be able to redesign something, or you're going to be able to work through an idea? When you're on a team and working through your process, you might realize that, oh, this isn't sustainable. I can't go through all these stages. And it's completely fine to cut corners. So on our own, we're prone to make everything our best, but when we're assigned a really hefty task like this, you're not going to be able to afford to do that. Now we're going to dig a little bit into the cell, which is a talk that Yanni did last year or 2 years ago that I honestly was really inspired by when that happened. And I think the cell plays a lot into the concept art process. I'm going to go over it a little bit briefer. This is a pretty amazing example of something that creates more questions than it answers. And who gets inspired by these questions and will springboard off of them? Your team. This is fundamental to the blue sky phase. How will anyone latch onto our ideas if we personally don't sell it or even believe in it 200% more than anybody else does? I would first, obviously, as it is a cell, you need to give extreme consideration for the design and its deliverables first. You can't completely miss the mark to sell people on an idea that you just felt like, hey, I would prefer this to be something different. You also need to take that into account, do it well, and then go beyond the scope of your responsibilities. For example, like if you were assigned to design a character and you are doing concept sketches for some elf character, you could meet all the deliverables that you've established. If there even isn't any for your blue sky phase, it might just be design something cool. You also might want to push forward and create a logo for a guild they're a part of, or create some unique origins for their cloak or for pieces of armor that they're wearing. Maybe the dagger is more ornate material, which signifies that it was stolen. And even in this piece, just the amount of storytelling in the environment and the UI elements that add so much to this game pitch, it's going beyond the scope and will inspire people to be like, oh, we need a UI, we need a logo. If that dagger is from someone else, maybe we could pull it in this part of the story. It's kind of one of the most satisfying parts of working in a group. So our design, the deliverables, and beyond, sometimes this doesn't work out and your idea falls kind of flat. And sadly, this happens a lot. It's now the team knows what not to do, and you're still advancing the project. Assets could be reused or even revisited later, which is really, really helpful. So no work will ever go to waste when you are on production. There's this one scene in the Frozen documentary, I think, the making of Frozen 2, where they scrapped like thousands of storyboards. Like they just shredded thousands of pages of storyboards, and that's like months of artists' lives burned away. But then they got to the finished piece into the movie and they got on the right track again. They knew what not to do. So we're going to talk a little bit about being a salesman. I think that this isn't to say that we're all going to have to like dig in this deep within our artwork and sell every piece and spend a bunch of time on adding all this extra stuff. Sometimes we're not going to have time for that, and sometimes that's not who we are. Some of us will be better at pitching and communicating our ideas through a presentation or through personalities. Some of us will really dig into our artwork and sell through wowing others with what we create. I know plenty of people that are really good at describing their ideas and just bringing out really interesting stories or bouncing off of other people when you're talking through an idea in a group. And some people are really quiet and really reserved, but then they show you their artwork and it is like outstanding. It is the craziest thing you've ever seen, and it goes far beyond what he was even asked to do or something. So there's different types of people that can work through this and that can sell their artwork. Personally, I'm pretty introverted. It takes a lot of buildup for me to speak up for an idea. So I oftentimes find myself in that latter group of selling an idea through iterations and through my art. So there we go. So imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is something that we all, I'm sure, know about, something that we all grapple with. I don't feel like my ideas are good enough here, and to some extent, I don't feel like I'm good enough here. It's going to be brought up on every team setting, especially when we get thrown into the industry, like I said before, where there's going to be a lot of people in our team, people that we even share desk space with, that have been working in the industry for years longer than we have. And it's going to be difficult to always keep that open mindset and try and learn from everything and take things in. There's always going to be that voice of I feel like I should have known that, or I don't know if I deserve to be here, actually. So this issue is not easily solvable, and for most of us is rooted in something a lot deeper than just surface level teamwork issues. For many of us, our personal value can be deeply tied with our art. Therefore, every failure or mistake can be a huge blow and really disheartening. There are kind of two realities to this situation in the industry. Once you get that dream gig, imposter syndrome will not go away. Our coworkers could be masters, and as amazing of an opportunity as that is, it is equally terrifying. Within the greater whole of a studio or a project, our work is also not ours to claim ownership over. Everything everyone produces gets consumed equally by the project. And sometimes our components will get scrapped, built onto until it's irrecognizable, or even reassigned to someone else. So these are both things we kind of all have to accept. It's definitely easier said than done, but on our artistic journey, it's a crucial step to becoming a professional. And fundamentally, this kind of goes back to why you personally do art. And it's a question you'll have to dig into with yourself. It's going to be a lot harder for someone who's really attached to their artwork to be able to scrap entire pages and pages of work compared to someone who's a team player and will be like, yep, all right, let's keep moving. The production matters more than my personal feelings towards something that I've created. Also, artists in general are actually, I think, really, really nice. And you'd be surprised how similar we all are. Like, I think one of my favorite moments of like working on a team is that moment of, oh, you look up to me, I also look up to you. And then we realize that we all respect and admire each other's work, especially on a long form production. Nothing beats the feeling of like growing together and being a part of a family. And that's probably one of the best parts and probably one of the best ways to dismantle imposter syndrome. So let's talk and like dig in to how we can personally improve. And this topic is kind of a lot harder to dig into because as much as like what I've been talking about is kind of theories and talking, it's all easier said than done. So first thing I would say is to start small. Starting small will help a lot of us shift our mentality from being an independent to thinking in a group. And I think you can always jump into the deep end, but a lot of my realizations and issues that make up this talk were from me doing that myself, from me making these mistakes before. So if I could have started small at one point beforehand, it would have made, I think, my life a whole lot easier and a lot of pain and headaches. Also, for people who are afraid of the social aspect, starting with some friends and some safe people that you consider to be like comfortable to be around, it'll help make you feel a lot more comfortable starting in a small group with people you're really used to. We also, all of us do personal projects all the time in our classes. And while personal projects are pretty independently driven, you are taking the role as both an art director and as the team of concept artists rolled up into one. And that can be very challenging to hold yourself accountable, to have this ebb and flow of communication between ideas that a team setting is going to have. And as great as it is for complete creative control, it's just not the truth of the jobs that we are going to be getting outside of school. So I would say keeping yourself in check with friends, professors, and mentors will be really helpful. Giving them updates really frequently also will help hold yourself accountable to time deadlines and actually creating the thing. So they can keep in check with pillars of your project. If you completely shift gears from a Lord of the Rings revamp to a like sci-fi revamp that looks way too much like Star Wars or something, it'll be really jarring. And if you sell the right idea to them, it'll also resonate. So having this reaction and this flow of people between you and outside of your personal project will be really helpful and help imitate what a team like setting will work like. It'll also help you avoid tunnel vision. As artists, we know what that shape or line or texture is, but can others tell what we were intending? This crew that you're making, especially if they're artists themselves, become your team that I've been talking about. Another idea is to keep in check with like group projects and one slide. Another idea is to keep in check with group projects or throwing yourself into the fire, drinking from a fire hose. You can go into art trades, you can go into draw dailies, clubs, group pitches, game jams, Scout Animation Studios, which is where a lot of my troubles of this have come from, and animation capstones. I think everyone on a team will become a connection. Anything in all of this is kind of team building. Working in an art trade with one of your friends that you're comfortable with is working in a group. Doing draw dailies with a group of people and studying and improving your art is also working in a group, and you're critiquing each other and you're supporting each other. Clubs, even here in Concept Art Club, we critique and we show work and we do contests that are very similar to how working in a group and being with other people is like. Group pitches, game jams, and the animation studios work is a bit more of the higher level. And I would highly recommend anyone to jump into that if they can, because it's a helpful experience before we graduate to get a taste and to get a feeling of what a professional pipeline is like before we actually get there. So some takeaways: working with others is, I think, one of the greatest aspects of our job. Teams force us to grow in new ways, and we get to create something like so much greater than we could ever create individually. Communication, as designers, we rely on communicating through our art, but how do we communicate ourselves? It's, I think, really important that we, especially in light of like recent issues over the past couple of years, that we be collaborative and be respectful and we problem solve within a team. And these are the first steps towards building a healthier and a stronger environment for everyone. Also for growing and for learning. The amount of growth and the amount of things that you will learn being on a group project is really, really helpful. And as much as it is about being social and, doing the team stuff, it's also about how we can improve as artists ourselves and what do we want to get out of it. I think the sooner we start digging into this, the sooner we'll get more comfortable. And I think everyone can do it. It's not as hard as you think. So, that is what I have. If anyone has any questions or anything to add, I would love to hear. I definitely speed ran through that, so I totally get if people are confused or want to know more about something.
Let's go, Ethan. No, that was great. I loved that. I think my favorite part, and I think one that's super important is like the hey, oh, we look up to each other. And that's something I think that we need to push. And it's hard to push in a classroom setting, because I feel like the SCAD classroom, you're encouraged to think in that rival mentality. And I think that's something that I've definitely been guilty of, and I'm trying to change how I think. Just like trying to think like, let's just look up to each other and like keep that idea of we're going to build each other up to being the best artists that we can be, because taking each other down isn't going to want to make someone work with you on a team later, but building each other up will.
100%. Yeah, for sure. The amount of times I have like seen that talk where like the talk doesn't happen, but it's there, where you're like with someone that you kind of idolize as an artist in a classroom setting, and you slowly but surely kind of get comfortable with them. I think that's like I don't know. It's kind of awesome because as much as we all like look up to each other, we also all are people. Like as Colin Red says a lot, like we all have breakfast in the morning. Like we're all humans and we're all just trying to get better at art and do our thing. And when we get into a job setting, we're all going to be coworkers one day. Like everyone here, like in this club is right now, even in this meeting, like we're all going to be coworkers one day. And that's kind of awesome. Also, the imposter syndrome thing is really hard to deal with. So, Will, I'm like totally with you. Yeah, like totally for sure. I think, Will, you had a talk about like art health. And I think you mentioned that, like looking back on your artwork from a long time ago and like
I
realizing, oh, wow, I've gotten a long way.
I always am a big proponent. Yeah, I did like a dumb talk about
It wasn't
um
dumb.
it was whatever. It was a mid talk, I think. But yeah, I always encourage looking back on your work. It's the most like it's the easiest way to like show that you've gotten better. Like it's so simple. Like the best way to do it, like draw the same thing twice. Like, oh wow, do a redraw of something that you did like a year ago, 2 years ago, and you'll see like in an instant that like all those micro-sized bits of growth that you've been accumulating slowly over a year or two, like those things show, those things add up, and it's important to remind ourselves that like we are growing, and every step forward, no matter how large or small, is still a step forward. So like let's keep stepping forward.
Yeah,
We can keep inching, like it doesn't matter.
yeah, 100%.
Uh, yeah.
Often the biggest problem is when you get in a team of 2+ people that prefer a certain specialty like character design. Yeah, that's really hard. I think when you have a situation like that, it's good to specialize a little bit more. Like you have two character designers, but what is each of them better at? Like what would each of them honestly want to do? Like someone that's more passionate about something. Like I was in a team recently and I say recently, trying so hard to not say anything wrong. I was in a team and there was a person that really liked doing a bunch of different, like everything. They were like, I'm down to do everything. And they were assigned one thing. And that was a little bit hard for them. Like, oh, I don't really want to do this. So we kind of let them roll around a bit. And eventually they found the character that they wanted to work on. And then they worked on that character like crazily, like almost an insane amount of work that went into it. And all of their focus was poured into this one character. And sometimes when you have multiple people that like to do a lot of different things, or two people that do the same exact thing, it's about kind of like stepping up and being proactive and being like, what is this person going to get passionate about, and what is the other person going to get passionate about that's different, that two minds will be out working on and chipping away at different parts of the project. Now, if like both of them get passionate about the same thing, then I've got no solution for that. They should just fight to the death. Hey, they're passionate. Also, how do you find teams to work in student projects? There's a lot of Discord servers for SCAD. There's so many, and it's
and especially right now for
senior films.
Senior films are coming out like all over Instagram stories. Like for the past few days have been nothing but like, oh, crew call, join our crew, join our thing.
Yeah.
So like, keep your eyes open. Like it may not be through like 100% specific. Like this is a SCAD branded student team event. Like you just got to keep your eyes open. Team gladiatorial combat. Yeah. Like
team
finding
bonding.
The SCAD Game Dev Network does a game jam every winter. But then outside of that, you can look outside of SCAD to do like game jams. There's a bunch of them. I swear if you just look up like Game Jam Network, yeah, itch.io, like shit like that. Like there's resources everywhere.
Also just kind of like being around in communities.
Yeah.
Like I haven't had time to work on this project, but I was pulled onto a team of people that I coordinated to get essentially a book project done, and we're actually finally hitting the finals of production, which is kind of fun. But like just making sure you have like your feelers out, and like if you notice the project is kind of like piddling around, be like, hey, I have skills in this, let me jump in and put like my 2 cents in. So like community things like that. Beyond that, I don't really have anything.
Well, I think no matter where we are at here, like at SCAD, like this is the best place like ever to get on a student project. Like we could be in a class, you could be in a class and like be working like near other people, and if you like their art and you make friends with them, why not just start a student project, like a personal project with them? Like one of my close friends asked me to do a personal project with them over the summer, and they didn't get their senior pitch nominated. They have no like SCAD official senior pitch, but like they just want to do a group project, and that's what we're going to do over the summer. And it could be a great portfolio piece and great portfolio work for both of us. Also, we just like each other, so doing that, and also like looking in Discords. There's literally with our concept art club, you could find people here that you like their work and want to work with them on an art trade or something that could branch into something more. Also, the animation Discords are always looking for people because there's like multiple different classes. Animation has so many group project classes that I wish we in illustration had the opportunity to get group project classes of some kind. I know it's like just it's a little bit different, but I feel like it's just something that we need. Oh, I don't have the link to the senior animation Discord. I know I'm talking it up, but I don't. Team goals, hive mind. I agree.
Team goals, long-term goals. Yeah. But we're in such a decent, like, I don't know. It's so easy to find good inspiration among other students these days. I feel like I don't know. I'm just surrounded by legends, so it's just like it's
Right?
so interesting to like,
Right?
be like just be like, yeah, let's work together. And to think in 5 years time, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 10 years time, it's like, oh, we could work together on some project. It's like that's awesome. That's such a cool thing.
Right?
Students rock.
Yeah, people are great.
People are cool.
This like ties in a little bit to Tessa's networking talk, but I think everyone is a connection, honestly. You don't even need to think about it like, oh, they're a connection. Everyone is someone that you can grow from and learn from. And to think that we are in a place, at least some places, where we're around artists that maybe we're gonna get like, not stifled. I don't know what the word is. We're not gonna get like, we could not get anything, and then they could get that really great industry opportunity. And being friends with them and being able to learn from them brings us so much closer to getting that industry opportunity and knowing what it takes. Like, we're in a great place to learn from our environment. And I feel like only learning from our professors and going into class and then leaving right away and then doing all that is only half of the battle here at SCAD.
Yeah, and I literally do not know what, like, if I was Ron Spears for a day, that's a good quote. I think we need classes where we're forced to work as a team. We need an art school group project. Other colleges have group projects all the time. We don't. We need illustration group projects. That would help so much.
Oh, it'd be so cool.
But it would suck. The problem is that, like, you could get stuck with shitters, and then that would be. But no, that's mean. That goes against everything we just talked about. I'm so sorry.
I'm gonna go. No.
Sorry, I ran my mouth a little bit.
Don't be a dick.
Don't be a dick. That's number one. Don't be a dick. Don't be
number
Will
one.
Grossman
Don't
right
be
now.
a dick. Number two, communicate better.
Number three, if you are a dick, admit to being a dick and apologize and own up to it. There you go.
Yeah.
No, I tried to pitch a group project thing one time as like a contest, but it's like hard.
I think that'd be so cool.
I think we should do one though. I think a concept art club group thing would be really cool. We'd have to really, and that's why we have the summer. I have an idea. Yeah, we'd have to do like a team-based quarter. That'd be so interesting. And I think could be fun if we did that, if we had like, you could like pledge to a team and it was all like a build-up. I've got ideas to share because now my brain's cooking. Yeah, we would have to make it interesting.
Yeah, that's an amazing idea. I pitched that too. I pitched that idea too.
It's hard to pull off, but I feel like it's such a good idea. Yeah, for sure. I also feel like it's worth it. I think if we were able to pull it off, and also, I mean, anyone that like doesn't want to just do it through a club, people know how hard it is to kind of make a personal project like on your own. Mm-hmm.
You know that feeling during like the summer or winter break where you're just like, I'm going to do a personal project. And then 2 weeks later, you've done nothing. And you're like, I'm going to still do it. And then 2 weeks later, you've still not done anything. It's really hard. I think working in a group and having like a group to be like, you are responsible and accountable to do work for people.
That's why I think it would be looser than like, oh, you have to get something done. It's like, okay, we have 4 groups that you can each like pledge yourself to. the groups kind of fill out. Each one is like, designated something. And then, I don't know, everyone does character designs. Everyone does a whatever. And then at the end, you compile all 4 of the groups and you've got like 4 individual like world building projects.
That'd be so cool. And each group, like,
assigned like a different theme, or like we pitch a world that has 4 factions, and then
or I was gonna say, or the same theme across all of them, but it fleshes out the same idea, like glitching.
Yeah, literally. That's what I'm saying. Like 4 pledge, dude. That'd be so sick.
That would be so sick.
I think not only is this a team building meeting, but it's a concept art club planning meeting.
By the way, were you asking about when your group has a range of styles trying to create a unified vision? Was that a question of like what to do there, or just a note earlier? So I actually have a whole story about that. Yeah, that does come up. In in the team that I've been working on, we have a lot of artists. Like, we have about 10 artists, and all of us have very different styles. And trying to unify our style and like create the stylization is really, really challenging. It's actually, I was talking with Steven Robertson about this, I think a couple weeks ago, and he was talking to me about group projects that he's been on, and how he was on one group project and it was being taken in a different direction than what he originally signed on for it. And he didn't like this direction. He like wasn't a fan. And he was telling me this happens a lot, actually, like where you sign on at the beginning and you're doing Blue Sky and it's really up your alley. And then that one dude creates a really cool idea, but it's very different. And then everyone's like, oh, it's a great idea. And you're like, I don't know. I don't know if I want to do that. And then it kind of spirals and it's really hard. You might not like be able to keep working in that like one style that you're in, and everyone has to kind of shift to some extent. Sometimes it's a large extent. I've had to shift to a large extent this quarter, and we even made this like Fred thing. We made this like anatomy guy where we all worked on the same like the default character to try and make a style guide. And yeah, it's hard. It's very difficult. You're definitely not going to get along with every style. And kind of like what I mentioned before, some of the rough productions can be caused because of style changes like that, like what you mentioned. That also could be a fun thing, though, having lots of different styles for one thing. Like our code concept art club portfolio project, having a bunch of varying styles that work into the same theme. That could be so cool.
Also, Nelson mentioned this in, I think, I actually like last class I had with her, where if you set the rules where things can be wonky right out the gate, you can run with that. So it's about setting early, I don't want to say like precedent, but like those early rules, like Amazing World of Gumball, like if you set that precedent or goal ahead of time, then it works.
Yeah, for sure. Well, if anyone has anything to add, any questions, anything you want me to go over, I'm down.
that's like mega valid though, because like your art muggle is the intended art audience 95% of the time.
That is true.
So like if something reads well on like a level that is like, you know, the every person, like that's the key goal, right? Like you've won if it looks good to everyone.
Yeah.
Because we try to please other artists, and that's another thing that like we wrap our heads around.
Yeah, we do. Especially when we're working, like, I don't know, when we're in a class, I feel like we definitely tend to please other artists, you know? Because, like, our professor and other people are going to see it. But then, like, you know that moment when, like, you share something you made to, like, your parents, and they're like, that looks like a butt or something, you know?
Exactly.
They have, like, no idea, and you're like, what? Does it? No, it doesn't. But then, like, I don't know. That's the audience, though.
I remember I did silhouettes for a project, a character design recently, and I showed it to some like non-art people or like people who aren't as arty, you know, do a little bit, and they were like, will half those silhouettes look like they have like a ball sack? And I'm like, oh, I didn't see that.
Oh god. We're too used to it. We're too used to making silhouettes and like, oh, that's so cool.
That's so sick. I love that shape language. Wow.
Someone else's
circular shape language. That looks like a ball sack. Like you need that. You need that real.
Yeah. Oh man.
Is it off topic, but is there a free mock-up set like templates like character design like format templates? Just copy it from someone else. Oh, posters and cards? Like maybe. That's like kind of specific stuff. I would just Google that kind of thing. Like look up like playing card Photoshop document template.
I think they meant like greeting cards. Even then.
Oh. Okay. Yeah. See, posters and cards to my brain reads totally differently. I think I've seen stuff like that.
Honestly, a good way to find that quickly, the free ones, is look for tutorials, like YouTube tutorials of like how to put something, like how to transform in Photoshop a design onto a greeting card or a poster, and most of those tutorials will have the template they use in the like bio, the description. Muddled around. Ooh. Dang. Yeah, thank you all for coming.